1-2-1-2. Welcome to the NYCHA podcast. We are here in the building. Mic check, Money Mike. You here?
Yeah.
All right, standing man. You here?
1-2, I'm in the house.
Standing man, if you don't mute your phone. We done said that before we shot. And you still got it up. I did say that, right?
Sure did.
Okay. Share, and check in. Let us know where you're from. Happy to have you take a ride. We're running a little behind today, but you know it happens. It's hot out. Somebody say, how hot is it?
Crazy hot.
Somebody say, how hot is it?
Crazy hot.
Can somebody say, how hot is it?
101 degrees or so.
Well,
Oh, y'all with me?
I'm
I'm asking y'all to say, like, here's a call and response. I'm saying
How hot
somebody
is
say,
it? Well,
say how hot is it?
I don't know. I would just say hot. I don't know.
Okay, so what I was asking the team to say is for somebody to say, how hot is it? So I can say it's 93 degrees.
Oh, you
But
want
they wasn't here with me. But I was saying somebody say it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I
Remember
thought you
back in the day
saying,
when
say
they say
how hot
somebody
is it?
scream? No. Remember back in the day they say somebody scream. People went, ah. Okay, now we all brand new.
Somebody said somebody scream, but nobody says somebody say somebody scream.
But you know they say somebody scream. Okay, now we got it. Who's on first, who's on second? It's one of those days. All I said was somebody say how hot it is.
How hot
it is. It's 93 degrees. Thank you. We happy to have you all here. Share. Check in. Let us know where you're from, your city, your borough. If you're in public housing, your NYCHA development. Let's go. We are in the building. One NYCHA, one people.
One NYCHA, one people.
One NYCHA, one people.
All right. See, okay. Carmen is here. Hey, Carmen. Kim is here. Emily's here. Brenda Temple is here from Ocean Bay, Rockaway. On the board. Tyree Ricks is here.
Look, everybody's saying, how hot is it?
Yeah.
How hot is it?
Oh, okay. Emily said hell high. Thank you, Carmen. She got it. She said, how hot is it? Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Audrey. See, they doing it. Okay. I don't know these guys today. They
were
weren't
slow today.
I don't know. I mean, and they claim to be hip hop guys. You know, Stan used to rock the mic, and you know what I'm saying. I know Rock. If he was here, he would have got it. I hope. LG now in Clinton Hills co-ops. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's get started, guys. All right, we got a few people in the room. Let's go. Get the music. All right, so once again, welcome to the NYCHA podcast. As all of y'all know, I'm Saundrea Coleman. I'm a public housing resident. If you don't know, I reside out in Isaac Houses, one of the co-founders of the Homes Isaac Coalition, and co-founder of this NYCHA podcast with this crew, and of course, Rock Logic, of course, as well. So we jump into our week, and then we got a topic today to just talk about and ride out with y'all. And you know we like to engage in the everyday politics, because this is something that we want public housing residents to start voting, getting involved, running for office, and just allowing your politician, your elected official, to actually work for you. And this is something that we want to let you all know that there is power in public housing, and if you don't live in public housing, but there's power, and we can have we could bring the next mayor in, the governor. There's so much we could do, because it's strengthening the numbers of us if we all come together and get behind one candidate. But we got to vet them out, right? We got to weed them out, see who's for us, who's not for us, and that's something that we got to look into and build power together. My week was pretty good, just a normal day to day. interacting in the community, helping our residents, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, helping people get repairs in my developments and beyond. And I'm happy to be able to help people and help them learn to advocate for themselves. I went out to Atlantic City yesterday. That was fun. I went out with Chambers Memorial Baptist Church, so shout out to that church. We went out there, a bus load of us, and we had a nice time.
Great.
I was hanging out with Esther DeVore. We'll bring her on eventually. She has a drummer. I forgot what it's called, but it's a drummer. She's gonna kill me for saying this because I'm not getting it right. I don't have it in front of me. But she does drumming with the youth. And she has a drumette program, and she wants to get that back really rolling. And a lot of youth have thrived through that. And so that's basically it. And check out the Get Down on Netflix. I'm watching that, and it's really good. I'm from the Boogie Down Bronx, so it really makes me reminisce about the Bronx and of course of hip hop. And they would talk about Grandmaster Flash, and all of that, and it's really, really, really good. Money Mike, how was your week?
Money Mike, smooth Money Mike.
Smooth.
Well, y'all already know y'all try to take it for me. But yes, my week been smooth. And yes, I kind of smooth to be honest. This table, I had to do another table like this in East New York. Oh my Lord, it's a hard table. And I say this table was about 1,000 pounds. It took about 5 or 6 of us.
Wow.
To move this table.
Wow.
Did that, and I also got I have an auction party scene to do.
You have a what there?
An auction party scene to do tomorrow for the next
Okay.
few
You're
days.
acting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a show coming out called Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
All right.
I was an attendee first, but now they got me a security. You need a big guy to be security.
Big guy.
All right.
Be a big guy. Give yourself
Security.
some.
All right,
Be a
all
big
right.
guy. How tall are you?
I'm 6'3" and a half.
Okay. What about you, Stan?
I'm 6'4".
I still dispute that. I stand next.
Got you by half an inch, brother.
I stand by Stan. I still
I'm
say
6'4".
he ain't 6 something.
But
like that.
I'm older now, so I bend over a lot.
You
But
sure?
I'm-
Okay,
but
you
I'm
bend
six-
over?
but I'm
Okay.
6'4". I'm standing straight up. I'm 6'4".
Go ahead, finish up.
But yes, I'm happy. Early morning ahead of me, but besides doing a lot of running around, getting ready for this thing, because we had to do a lot of COVID tests and fittings to do for the thing to come up next week, and then I also had to go to the schools and build some studios.
That's
and plus,
great.
Nice.
That's great.
And then plus, my mother's birthday just passed the 19th.
The 19th?
Okay.
Okay, Mom, does she watch the show?
I don't even know. I'm gonna ask
All
her
right,
to be
well,
honest.
happy birthday to you.
This show? Yes, she watches on.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mama. Last name?
John.
Jones. Happy birthday to you. Let her know we sung her on the show. You even got in on it. Wow. Okay.
But yes, that was my week. Just hand it over to Stan, the man.
Kick it
All
on.
right, all right.
Kick it to him.
Well, I just want to point out something that I found disturbing this week. I saw our Governor Hochul pass something for the Empire State Development Corp to get billions of dollars, to do this renovation of Penn Station. They're going to build, as I mentioned before, 10 skyscrapers. And the thing that really disturbs me is that one of the people that would be benefiting from this is a gentleman by the name of Stephen Roth. Now Stephen Roth is somebody that donates money to Trump. Donates money against abortion rights. Yet Hochul, who's a Democrat, is going to be benefiting this gentleman and giving him tax breaks to build these skyscrapers, billions of dollars. So what they're telling us is that, again, a commuter is more important than somebody living in NYCHA. Why would you spend money, in my opinion, to fix Penn Station? You got people that have broken houses that they're living in. So where's the priority? And then have a Republican billionaire, profit and gets billions of dollars in tax breaks.
Well, let's kick
and
that.
then here goes the kicker. They don't even know how much it's going to cost. So they gave this guy like a blank check. Here's a blank check to do whatever. There's no regulation of how much it's going to cost, no nothing. Wow. So most of these development projects, whenever they start with a number, it usually exceeds that number. So we starting here with a case where there is not even a number. So they can go on and on.
The state has this money to do this.
Right. Yeah.
But they can't take care of public housing.
Can't help public housing. So
or the housing issue, huh?
Right. It just shows their priorities, again, does not reflect our needs and what we want. I know folks got a choice to make with Hochul and who, if you're going to vote for or not. And I guess it's maybe the lesser of all evils, right? Maybe you have no choice in this case. But it's just sad that this is the kind of official that we get. The same person that was in favor of privatizing NYCHA, in favor of the blueprint. Right. Now she comes out with something like this, and the mayor's on board, everybody's on board, so it just once again shows you where the priorities really are. Yeah. It does not have anything to do with us. So we got to pay attention to this stuff, because they tell you there's no money. But there's a lot of money for everything else, but there's never no money when it comes down to NYCHA.
And when was the last time that Penn Station was renovated? Because it had to be renovated in the past.
Yeah, it's been, and I go through
it looks fine.
It's not.
I mean, I see these train stations. Every train station always
pop-ups. They have pop-up shops down there and everything.
Yeah, I mean, matter of fact, 100% correct. So all they're really doing is making it more amenable to commuters, and not even commuters, but tourists.
Well,
and all the rest of that, and all the tourist money. I get all of that. But you can't put that ahead of the lives of people that are here right now, that are literally dying in our apartments right now. So just another blatant example, of the same people doing the same thing. The same people will benefit, and the same people will lose, and it's always black and brown people, and the most vulnerable. So I was just disturbed to hear that, and I think these are things that we gotta pay attention to as we continue this fight. Don't let them tell you there's no money.
Right.
There's money.
Oh, of course.
They're just not spending on us.
On us, on black and brown people. Right. Yeah, and we need to ask Governor Hochul, since, because Governor Cuomo put the, what is it called, the state of emergency. We would declare the state of emergency to him. Right. And she was his lieutenant governor. Now she's the governor. What is she doing about that? Because as I see, and I think everybody else see, or I believe everybody else know, a state of emergency is serious. Right. And NYCHA was declared a state of emergency in 2018. Right. We received the monitorship in 2019. Absolutely. But with that said, you would think a whole lot would have been done. Absolutely. It hasn't happened. Absolutely. From funding and everything. Like, she has a lot of power as the governor. You know what I'm saying? And our elected officials, throwing millions of dollars to NYCHA does not help repair our homes. Right. Because it's not enough. We need the billions infused, as I say over and over. We need the billions of dollars infused immediately to get the work done. Absolutely. And until then, you nickel and dime us, it's not going to happen. And we're going to still live in deplorable conditions. Yes, some developments or some apartments are better than others, but some people are really, really, really suffering. A particular lady in my building actually did some repairs in her home herself. And who's to say when you messing with things that you shouldn't, or you harming yourself? Right. You know what I'm saying? Because of asbestos and stuff like that. But that's a whole nother animal. But yeah, finish up. And
I would like to say, I'm not going to mention sorority, but I did speak to a sorority that one of my kids that I raised, that I'm like a godfather to, is affiliated with, and they're interested, in working with One NYCHA and figuring out exactly what that will mean. I did also have a good talk with PSL again, and so I'll be attending their meeting this coming Tuesday, and they want to get involved with the boots on the ground to kind of help us get the word out in that way. And we're going to be starting in Ravenswood in September, as a first launch, to really begin to do these community meetings and take the message from just the podcast out into the community. So I'm excited to get into that phase of the work. Some lawsuits we're going to file. I spoke with Queens Legal Services. They're wanting to work with us as well to bring lawsuits. We filed when I was at Justice for All against Queensbridge, but we will be filing against Ravenswood, against Astoria houses, and also Woodside, and that'll be a One NYCHA initiative. So I'm excited that we're about to enter into that phase, and look out, we're just getting started.
Yeah, all right. You ain't gonna give him that? He said all that. Give your brother something. He said a whole lot. Yeah, One NYCHA is about to be real busy. Busier. Yeah, beyond, as you said, we're not just a podcast. We're a movement.
Right, exactly.
At the end of the day, and we want to, work with people, work alongside people. PSL, Party for Social Liberation.
That's it.
Done work with them.
And they work with you, right? It's part of
in El Barrio. They were, involved with the Homes as a Coalition. So, and I sent some of them down to, Fulton houses, right, in 2019. So. Yeah, because they were talking about going red, that
Hey,
red
absolutely.
pack with Fulton houses. So I was like, y'all gotta go see about them because my best friend lives out there. Shout out to Poochie. All right, but so let's segue because we got a lot to talk about and unpack today, guys. Topic today. NYCHA community centers matter, right? They matter,
Absolutely,
right? Come
yes.
on, they matter.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
So is your center privatized? Is your center privatized? That's the question we want to ask our viewership. Is your center and your public housing development privatized? And I could say Isaac Center is privatized. It's been privatized for some years. A lot of people wasn't aware. I started looking at how things were done, and I started asking questions, and I found out that we were actually privatized. And they have a way of doing this without the residents even knowing.
So let me ask a question. So you're saying that the community centers are private, but not the development itself. So they're privatizing the community centers.
Yes, that's one
even
of the
before
things.
they privatize
They
the
were
development.
doing that before the infill, all that. They've been doing this slowly. Either they're shutting them down, closing them,
Right.
padlocking them up, or they're going under privatization. So NYCHA, of course,
Can they
still
have
owns
a
it.
private community center in the public development?
Well, that becomes
It's
an
about
issue.
funding. It's about funding. Yeah.
But nobody in that development have any say so over that community?
Don't even know. That's how NYCHA operates. We didn't even know.
Well,
And
we
if
got-
it happened to us, it happened to others. I have an email that I did a research. I have to pull that up, and it was several developments. And when you look at how it's scoped out, it would say if it goes NYCHA, then it's still with NYCHA. But then it might say a particular entity, and it should change then because we now are under Goddard Riverside. So Isaac Center, now it moved to Goddard Riverside. So they took over. They're over us now. So it's privatized on top of privatization. So
Wow.
yeah, so they absorbed. Yeah.
What's the point of the presidents, vice presidents, if they don't have no say so on what could be happening to
Well,
buildings and development?
Well, I would say if you're not communicating with the resident council, which I believe some developments, I know with us they hold meetings, like our resident association holds meetings there, but are they really working with the center? Probably not. The Homes Isaac Coalition does partner with the center. So that's how we get to go to different meetings. We find out a lot more than other people, and we inform the residents. But if your resident association is not really just using the center to house their meetings, and they're not working with the director and leaders of the center, then they wouldn't know, or they just didn't care. I can't speak to that, but that's a good question. But I think that's individually to each development. It starts with a relationship.
Well, we have one with the director in Ravenswood, and I guess that's a perfect example of a community center that's kind of underutilized. And I don't know if it's private or not, Mike. That's probably something we got to look into. I know
It was under Jacob.
it's under Jacob East, so I'm imagining that it's not private, but I'm not getting to that because Jacob East and such, they've been
But
supportive.
what is Jacob Reese?
Jacob
It's under
Reese-
Jacob Reese. I know what Jacob, but is Jacob?
It's under Jacob East. It is. It's
Maybe
like
Last time I checked.
it is absolutely.
So
they-
then that means it's privatized, right? Wouldn't it be?
No, what Jacob East is a
Talking about
non.
Ravens?
Ravenswood, yes.
No, privatization could be under a nonprofit too.
Okay, well, that
Entity. Like medical coverage.
Right.
There's medical coverage that is listed as a nonprofit, but they still you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
It's an entity. So if it's no longer under if Jacob Reese has taken over Ravenswood, yeah.
Well, I would say it's not under NYCHA, so I know Jake. Well, I guess that's a question.
Yeah, we gotta look
Jacob
into it.
East is a nonprofit, and they're funded, by a lot of people. I'm gonna be honest, who are on the other side of the fight than we are. A lot of people that give money to Jacob East are also in favor of some of the development that's going on in Queens. It becomes maybe a bit of a conflict. When you have groups that want to come in and speak against those things. So I know it hasn't been an issue with us in Ravenswood, nor has it been an issue with us when I was at Justice for All at Jacob East. We was able to go in there and say what we want. But I do know in your center, Mike, it's so underutilized. And I want to ask you, Saundrea, since yours is private, are the youth in your development utilizing the community center in the same ways as a larger community since it's private? I know you mentioned that there's some disparities there.
Oh, definitely. We went from, we had after-school programs and so forth, and a lot of that still exists, but not housed where we're at.
Right.
So our kids would have to go from 93rd and 1st to 95th and 3rd Avenue to
Right.
An after-school program, which makes no sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? When we used to have it there, because my son went there and it worked for me.
Right.
There are a lot of, they have some initiatives because there's two centers. There's the Isaac Center, then there's the Holmes Center.
Right.
But they call them both the Isaac Center because they're privatized now. And they call the one on the Isaac side the Senior Center, which is not. It's
Right.
an Isaac Center, it's a community center. You can go into your community center, ask for copies to be made. You can send an email and get something printed. Like, use your community center, rather it's privatized or not. Use them, they are a resource for you.
Right.
They do different programs, GD, cooking, that's on the other side, that's on the home side. But one of the things is, and the problems that I've spoken, and we've been meeting with the director and, you know, with the leadership there, is all these initiatives that they do with the youth, they're youth that's coming throughout the city to
Right, so it's not, right.
they're not actually gearing and reaching out to what's there, which to me is a disenfranchisement to our community.
Right, right,
and
right.
I speak out about it because it's just so unjust. Because how can you have all these activities and our kids are not benefiting, our youth are not thriving from it? You
Right,
understand what I'm saying?
right.
So they don't even know that it's there. And I'm watching these come in with their backpacks from somewhere else, because we have we have a workforce program here too.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's city funded.
I hate to put you on the spot, you know, but do you find that it's more people of color or not that are using your particular center?
It's still people. I think it's still people of color. From what little bit I've seen, like,
Right.
I mean, but it's not an influx. Like, it should be. If you have a GED program, then it should be kids in our community, and even if it's a development or two down the block,
Right.
they should be coming over. But if you don't know that's there, my son got his GED, but
Right.
not there. He went, I believe it was to Union Settlement or something, which was up
Right, I remember you- I
further
know you-
up.
yeah, I know you
So
said
I
that.
mean, why not right here if you were offering
Right.
it? This was my oldest. This was years ago though. This is the thing, like the resources are there, but they're not there for the people, which is a problem, because even with our food and everything we do in our center, there's people from the area,
Right.
95th, 100, 100th Street, East Harlem. They all come to our center because they
Right.
say we have a lot of good programs. Like, I teach bio writing
Right.
there on
Right.
Thursdays at 10 a.m. Everybody, you're welcome to come in. You can come in physically or you can join virtual. I do that. I do that service. That's free. I don't
Right.
charge or nothing like that, because that's me giving back to my community. But there's so much resources. They got dancing. They have a lot of things.
Right.
So. No,
What I would say is, looking at what's happening with the kids today, I'm a father with a teenager, and I just read in the paper today, there's a great percentage of kids not going to school right now. I mean, there's 250,000 less kids going to school, so the numbers are drastic. I mean, so it appears to me that these community centers would be a great resource,
Yeah.
since kids are not getting the education that they were since the pandemic. The numbers are continuing to drop, and kids are literally just dropping out. So the need for community centers to bridge that gap is probably more critical now than ever. And for that not to be happening, and for it to be benefiting people who do not live in the development, who are the kids who need it the most, who are the kids who probably may have had issues with internet during the whole pandemic. Those are the kids that need these services more than anybody else.
Of course.
And it's just a shame. It's a shame.
We're working to get the Homes Isaac Coalition, we had a very small tutoring program last, what you would call, not a semester, but this last school year.
Right.
So I'm thinking higher education, my bad. But during this last school year, we had very young kids coming. And, we knew that because of the pandemic, because of them learning virtually, some kids were some of the, what
Right.
they can receive via education. So we had some tutoring coming out. working with them. It was a very small group. We might have had about 8,
Right.
maybe 8 to 6 kids. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Everything starts small.
yeah.
So we are planning to bring back the after-school program, and that should be maybe about 25, but that's still not good.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the bandwidth over there is much larger than that.
Right.
You know, because we would serve, the community would serve from maybe first grade on up to,
Right.
you know, maybe 5th or whatever age. That is the cutoff for the after school. But we're going to start it back at 25, and we had to really, we might scale it to 30. And when I say we, it's because the coalition, we sat down, you know, with the leadership director and everything, because we want this back in our community.
Right.
And I think once we get it back, then we can expand it even more. But you got to start back slow, because it's like starting from scratch, because it's been disbanded.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And for a community center to be shut down is a crime. You know, that's just terrible. I know as a kid coming up, you know, I wasn't one to go into the community center so much, but I know kids and youth need activities. Maybe now you can speak about you coming up and going to Ravenswood, but I know for me, you know, the activities were the thing that made your life, it gave your life, you know, some roundness, you know, it gave.
Called the what's that? The daycare center.
Right.
We still have that, but remember the daycare center, how it takes care of the community.
Right.
So
Right.
and you know, so but we still have that, and that's home side. Hey, Money Mike, how was your experience with community
did you go?
centers
Did you go?
then and now?
Well, I know. I could say I seen a few. I don't want to say preschool, but you know, so I guess kids between the ages of 2 or 3 to probably 10. I seen them sometimes coming from the community center in the summers, like last year or the year before that. But I'm not sure if you know if they had any activities and what they was doing there. But I know people around. I wasn't in Ravenswood around them times.
Right.
I was in Brownsville.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and I ain't go to the community center there.
No?
But I don't know if anybody went to the community center there either. I'm not saying nobody had. I haven't went to the community center in Brownsville. I mean, I don't remember anybody mentioning or coming out to our community center.
Remember
I mean,
the
I know Yogi
free
Bear
breakfast.
came.
Remember the free breakfast?
I remember
lunch,
free
right?
breakfast, but that was
Right.
when I used to go to my grandma's house in Bayview Projects.
Right.
In Brownsville and in Bayview, I remember Yogi Bear Church, like Yogi Bear used to come through,
Right.
give out snacks, toys, and talk about the Lord. But I mean, in Ravenswood, they came to Ravenswood too when I first moved out there.
Right,
I seen
right.
Yogi Bear there too as well, because they used to go to every development.
Right.
And but community center, when I moved to Ravenswood, I haven't been there. I started going to community center when I was an adult, and that was just because I wanted to. I seen that they had a workout center, and then I just
Yeah,
wanted
you
to
was
go.
telling
Right,
us about
right.
that.
Well, your particular one is a studio, I believe, in here. You
yeah,
have a boxing thing, like you mentioned in there.
Ravenswood.
It's Ravenswood.
Ravenswood.
Right,
And
they have boxing. They have even like a pool table or
That's nice.
thing, like little game tables or
Recreation.
but nobody's using it.
I mean, no, they have a few people that knows about it already that use it, but
Okay.
it's not like something that they advertise to let people come there all the time. I mean, probably the people that have been using it now is the people that have been using it before. I mean, it's not like it's something that people just go do.
Well, I think we have an opportunity here, I guess, you know, since Ravenswood did give us the okay, and I do have a relationship with that director there, that we can maybe have some talks and say, you know, let's just not have our community meetings here, but how else can we support you, you know, to get more youth involved, you know, because we're not reaching the youth and getting them involved, not just in activities for themselves, but also for this NYCHA movement, you know, then, you know, we're losing out on a lot of energy, you know, so I'm feeling that we're missing an opportunity, you know, to really bring the youth in, and that's where you can bring them in, you know, by having activities and things of that nature in these centers, so these kids can be involved at an early age and catch them. Now let me ask this question, Mike. You know, you're a little younger than I. So, is there fear of going to community centers? I know there's a lot of, sometimes in different developments, there's gang activity and violence and shooting and such. Is that playing any role in people not wanting to go to a community center? So I know in Ravenswood, they were telling me one side of Ravenswood don't get along with the other side of Ravenswood, and then you hear the community centers here in the middle, and you know, is there going to be beef? You know, and so I was shocked to hear all this. You know, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, certain people don't deal with with each other, but I mean, I doubt it's fair that stopped them going to the community center. I mean, to be honest, it's literally nothing. I mean, besides the rap, the studio, the recording studio, literally nothing that they actually invested in. I mean, if it's something that would give them inspired to want to do better with themselves. I mean, because even if there is a GED program in the community center, how whatever these kids seen growing, or young adolescents seen growing up, I doubt they would just go in there for a GED. Lesson. You would have to, make them understand how valuable it is, and that it's something that's very important to have, so you can move on to other things like college. Right. Need high school diploma or GED in order to
be a civil servant worker. You gotta have a GED.
You gotta have, but some people don't do that because even like y'all were talking about last week, we talked about that Supreme. That was my first time watching it, and it was true. I think L. Cool J even said that. When you watching as a kid, when you watching people out there, you go outside, you see these hustlers.
Yeah, the hustlers. Yeah.
These big time ballers, right? This is what you actually want to do.
Right.
And sometimes it's fast money that they would actually look for. Yeah. And to be honest, it's not like nobody out there just helping them. Even if they was to go out there and try to get do something better with themselves.
Right.
The only thing they're gonna do is be judged, and especially by what they know and how their history was, or what they seen, or what they've been, and all this other stuff.
Sure.
Nobody want to sit there and give them an opportunity. So
that's true, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people, when you listen to certain documentaries, and I believe it might have been said in that one, but I've heard it in other ones, the Scarface movie is what inspired people to get into the drug business. You know what I mean? To start dealing drugs, watching Scarface. Like, I think they mentioned it in the Supreme Team movie too.
Yeah.
I mean documentary.
Yeah,
but that has
the gangsters and mobsters.
Yeah, so that's what gave people, because everybody went to see, literally, and I can't say everybody, but a lot of people went to see Scarface. You know what I'm saying? And that's like and I have a picture of Scarface in my house. So and I actually have the original Scarface movie that a lot of people are not aware of. And it wasn't alcohol. I mean, it wasn't drugs. It was alcohol at that time.
Right.
But there's an original Scarface. But a lot of people don't know before the Al Pacino.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I wasn't.
Okay, right.
I mean, it's not like I was out there when Scarface was coming on. Everybody was watching the movie, but I mean, I'm probably one of the youngest people that's in my circle. So, and I'm pretty sure that they was already inspired by, for some reason, some sort of drug encounter before Scarface even came out. I mean, that's the reason why they probably liked the movie.
Yeah, well,
but that's where a lot of them did say, like, even some of the big time, they said that movie is what.
People make it sound like a victim.
Well, you got Scarface. I remember even watching Denzel Washington. That's more in our current times. That kind of glorifies it. But this is.
If you're talking about that, like if you're talking about the 80s type, 80s and 90s guys, I don't know what year Scarface came out.
I think in the 80s, but please, they was already inspired by who?
Yeah, so I was gonna say you had all of that.
Bumpy Johnson.
There was already in existence.
Or in Brooklyn, they had people that was super gangster, like 50 Cent. I'm not talking about the rapper.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
They had people out there like people already inspired by.
But that's what they're saying. This is what the Kingpins and some of them that are inside. They said that. They said it inspired them.
I know, but people always like to blame the devil for the evil.
Well, I'll just say, when we talk about the subject, this is one of the failures of not fully funding NYCHA. We talk about the apartment repairs not being done and all the rest of that.
Investing in the community.
Right, but when you don't have these centers fully funded and fully operational, then you're really giving up on a generation, because you're not doing anything to really address that generation. So why even have a community center within a development that's not funded? I've seen them close,
Right.
and everything else, and it makes no sense. So that's one of the things that people don't talk a lot about, but that's how we're losing out by lack of funding, and that's how we're losing out when we lose these centers to privatization. That's a hub for the community that you basically taken away.
It was a disinvestment of funding and a disinvestment. Is it actually a disinvestment to the people?
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. At a time when we need it the most.
Resources.
Right.
Hope.
Yeah.
Like
So
they don't need hope.
We need
They
to
don't
ask
know.
Eric and them about that. Now, and this whole blueprint stuff, maybe you've seen it. I know I haven't seen it. I don't see anything talking about funding for community centers. Maybe if somebody could chime in the chat, if there's anything about the blueprint or RAD that speaks to anything about community centers, I haven't seen it. And if it's not in there, that's a glaring omission. That's terrible. That tells you that the funding money they're bringing in, they're not bringing it in to better any of us or invested in any of us. It ain't about none of us. It's about their profit. That's all it is about. And for them to ignore such a vital component, like for me, I go back again, if we didn't have like basketball, like why aren't there basketball tournaments? Why aren't there resources given to that? You talk about why kids are in gangs and one people can't go to one project. We had beef growing up too with different developments, but we would all come together and play some ball. So we had a tournament in Lafayette Gardens. You had folks that may come down from Marcy. You may have folks come down from Fort Greene. We had the little NA Rock cats, who were not from the projects, but they were in the neighborhood. And that was a meeting place, and sometimes there were shootouts and things happen, it wasn't always perfect, but it brought the community together, so without these resources, which we don't have, we're literally giving up on the generation. They're just saying, fend for yourselves, at a time when they're confused, at a time when there's more mental health issues amongst our kids than ever, because they're dealing with COVID. Some of them lost their graduations, can't go to school, the whole online nonsense. It's needed more now than ever.
And you don't even know what kind of sickness is going on in someone's house because of exposure from the lack of repairs, right?
Right.
The mold and mildew, the asbestos, and whatever else is going on in our homes. And we don't know if that's in lead poisoning that affects not just children but adults. So if it affects children and adults, then of course the children, which we always think of smaller, but that's the adolescents too. And that impacts their learning abilities and so forth. So yeah, a lot of things we got to say is the fault of NYCHA, which then is actually the fault of our city, state, federal
That's
government.
right. That's right. Who
That's
have sold us out, continue to sell us out. We gotta, as we do this NYCHA movement, these are one of the things we gotta put on the table.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we're getting the proper resources, to our community, and again, the blueprint, RAD, does not address that. We need fully fund NYCHA, and we're still waiting on this money supposedly. But I did get a email that said, and I don't know how true it is, I'm not gonna mention the person that sent it to me, but he said that Chuck Schumer is supposedly having a meeting with Joe Manchin, supposedly, about this $1 billion Build Back Better stuff, so I guess it's not totally dead. I don't know how legitimate that was. I know what's the name came on the show, Chuck, and made a whole lot of promises, but I suppose a dysfunction in Washington, and I don't want to get too much of that.
Well,
but
I would say appeals too. He was appealing.
And I'm not blaming him. I believe when Chuck came on the show, he was honest and forthright.
He's optimistic.
Right, and really wanted to get it done, but then when
It's needed.
Right. But then when you watch, let me ask y'all a question.
I think you want to go into the chat, right?
Go ahead.
Go into the chat?
Mike. Go ahead, Money Mike. What's in the chat?
Well, I know that. Well, I gotta go up because there was a lot written since we was talking. And I know that. Carmen said that all presidents have the right to take their centers back. That she is currently doing that right now.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
And Brenda Temple said most centers are under Department of Youth and Community Development Child Center New York.
Okay.
Stephanie said nonprofits get this lease along with the funding is like subcontractor.
That sounds like probably like Jacob East, but they're doing there perhaps.
Look deep into it.
I believe, said they are not getting the education because Mayor Adam cut the school funding. Pathetic. That's why.
He sure did. He sure did.
And he had no problem with it neither.
He sure did. Sure did. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. That's terrible.
Brown man.
Why would you cut the school?
I mean, because he's not, you ain't here for that.
Funding.
Eric is here.
Fund the police. That's
yeah,
it.
he's
Fund
here for the police, and the police are here to protect property, and he's here to put some dollars in the pocket of some billionaire developers. That's what he's here for. Pretty much that's
And
it.
education matters so much. Our youth, when you think of, I guess they still have it. I don't know who remembers when they had like going to school, and you had, I guess they would consider them the problem kids, and they had them in a special education class, and they were housed in there. And it wasn't that maybe they needed it, maybe they had behavior issues or whatever like that, but it's just when you think about how we came up. Like I said, I don't know what it's like now because my kids are adults. I don't know what they're doing in the school system now. But I just remember how that was and how painful that was. You know what I'm saying? Because now, back then they weren't what they're doing now. They weren't doing back then. Like they would come in and arrest. They would arrest a child in these schools. You're seeing this all through the media now. A kid that's having maybe a behavior issue, behavior breakdown, or whatever it is, because they're not trained, because they clump them all in, and they have different needs. Right. And then some of the kids that are clumped in there could still be in the regular classes. Right. Just maybe they might need extra person with them to see it or something like that. But when they clump them all in there, all of those kids didn't belong in that setting. Right. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like putting them all inside one bubble, and then you learn. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's a relationship. You learn the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And I don't know. When I just think about it, what they do with the kids now, and how they arresting our babies, especially the black kids, or getting arrested for getting into fights, or they're just cuffing them. That's detaining. That's a problem. Because you don't get that in other areas. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. But
and I would just say, as a parent, and looking at the school system and watching my child go through it. I was once, I don't know if folks for public school or charter schools, it's upsetting to see that so many kids are not going to public school. And then where are they going? Are they going to the charter schools? And so, no, I think a lot of them are actually just dropping out. Because I know in my child's experience, she goes to charter school, and I'm not gonna name the name, but they're giving away credits. I'm talking about giving away credits. Like if you go, just say you have not gone to school for the whole year, and then you go to summer school for 3 weeks, they're giving you the credit for the year. So I'm like, so why are you doing that? Because these charter schools, if the kids are not performing well, then they don't get their funding. So they Well, I'm saying from my.
I'm saying I can't speak to
right.
them.
So you say if the kids are all flunking, then they don't get their funding. They lose their charter. So I've seen it. And I will not name the school. And my child goes to the school, and yes, credits may be gotten. But I sit back and say, well, what was really learned? Not a whole lot. So are you just kind of pushing kids along? And then once they get out, are they going to be prepared to go to college or do what? When you just gave them a credit. So if that's happening in the charter schools, and then you have all these kids not going to public schools, right. Then what do you really think is going on with the state of our youth right now? If that's happening in both levels of education at the same time that it's being cut. Right. So it's a sad state of affairs. I can tell you that. And these are our elected officials. This is what they're doing. So we got to be the change we want to be.
Yeah. And I believe this, and I agree with Carmen. I believe this was spoken about in a show or two in the past. She says that's why there should not be mayor control in our schools. Big mistake. Yeah. And we all agree on that.
Yeah. Where's the parental involvement?
Yeah.
Bring the parents in.
Yeah. Brenda says overcrowded, low staffing. Yeah.
I'm like, as a parent, nobody consulted. We just get told this is what it is. And here's a letter, and now they're trying to go back to school now. In person. The whole thing was a mess. I don't say I have all the answers, All I know is the learning online was in many cases a disaster. You know, I'm just saying from my experience and what my children went through.
Hybrid should have been an option because hybrid can work for a kid that can still sustain being home.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, and then the kids that need to be in the school setting can go. So the choice of hybrid would have worked, you know, and cut down on the COVID cases. Because remember, you're forcing the kids to go to school, and when a kid gets COVID, what happens? They bring it home. A parent got to take care of the kid.
Right.
So then the parent gets sick, or the parent got to ice. You know, it just was just too much. I mean, we needed to be, you know, the kids needed to be educated, and we get that. And yeah, it was lousy. But you would think this happened in 2020, because when I was in NYCHA Theological Seminary, we had to go from in person to hybrid, you know, not to hybrid, but to online courses.
Right.
So I mean, can you imagine? I had to preach. One of my classes, I had to preach a sermon online. You know?
Right.
I mean, it's doable, but it was different from standing in front of your peers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the other stuff we had to do too. But that's different. We're adults. So, but for kids, it you know, kids and youth, it is a hard transition. But the hybrid model works. You know what I'm saying? It works for that teacher. Like my sister-in-law retired. She's an educator. I have two sister-in-laws that are sisters in love, I would say then, are educated. One is a principal in Riverdale, and my sister-in-love, Monique, is a school teacher in the city. She lives in Jersey, but she would commute to the city, and she had to, you know, literally retire, you know, because they weren't really working with, you know, teachers that probably couldn't be in these settings or whatever the reason was.
Right.
And you know, and she's went and got several masters to, you know, bump up her cha-ching. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so,
sure.
But some teachers had to be forced out. And you know, I guess I don't know. I can't speak for her, and I don't want to speak online if she wasn't a force out. But you know, she loves to teach.
Right.
You know, she even teach in church. You know what I'm saying? So that's like she's taught alternate learning, like. Job Corps, I believe in. It was one place down near when I was working out at the 13th. They had a house of youth, and they had a chef and everything. Because when I saw Avon Ding Dong, I was Avon lady. I would see her down there, and I think she even taught in the prisons and stuff before. So she likes alternative learning as well as regular settings, and that's somebody that loves teaching. And do Job Corps, this and that.
Sure,
you know, that's a blessing.
It's a passion.
And then for this person to retire or have to retire, or just as like for whatever reason, maybe, you know, people retire because they don't like what's going on with the colleagues, what you do, you know. So, but she actually retired. So this year,
I think a lot of teachers were just frustrated, you know, because as you go through it, you know, it just seemed to be a lack of leadership from the top, you know, and I think a lot of teachers were confused and frustrated. I don't think they were properly trained on how to do online teaching, you know. So it was just a mess. And then I remember for my own kids, sometimes you go online and it wouldn't even be a teacher there. You know, it's just so much confusion that was going on throughout the process. And I, as a parent, was just totally disgusted, and still am. As I'm looking at what's going to happen this year, you know, as I'm looking to it. I really don't have a clear idea. You know, the school's right around the corner. You know, so I know they planning to go back in person, but you know, it's just so unfortunate. You know, and I don't think we'll know until decades down the road just how damaging this has been. You know, I mean, the mental health issues that it caused, the anxiety that it caused, the lack of confusion. You know, or the confusion with teachers and how the learning is going to be. We're not going to know how these teenagers are affected until a little bit down the road, and I suspect that it's going to be a bad. We're going to have some bad issues here, you know, as a direct result, and it's just a shame.
And what do y'all think about like out of the chancellor? The chancellors are chosen, but by the mayor, right?
Yeah, I know. Eric got his guy in there.
What is that like? How about getting a group, parents or you know, people that really know, maybe parents, teachers, and kind of helping them steer and do the interview process, right?
Right.
To select a chancellor.
Yeah, well,
you know, because that's favoritism sometimes.
Yeah, we
You know what I'm
picked
saying?
this friend, from what like I said, our relationship. But it's very similar to like NYCHA, right? Is the most deeply impacted people are not the people at the table, and the ones, but we are the most impacted by the decisions, and many times the decisions made don't benefit us, So it's the same thing, which I think is what turns people off, from politics and getting involved, because you feel like, your voice is never heard nowhere, and that's from a state, city, and local level. But I will say, to switch it up a little bit, I don't know if you guys have followed the January 6th stuff, but, all I can say, if Donald Trump, and I'll say it again, if Donald Trump does not end up in prison, that would be a miscarriage of justice beyond anything we've ever seen.
And he might become president again.
So, this is like the emperor has no clothes. How in the world? When you really look at this stuff now, I don't know if you guys saw the outtake when he was preparing to give his speech. He couldn't say the word yesterday. He couldn't say that he lost. He literally could not get the words out of his mouth. This is at a time when these guys are storming, the White House, and it was really amazing. Then you heard the calls from the Secret Service people. They were literally calling to say for their lives. Yeah. That's how critical. I remember when Chuck came on the show, he talked about it. Just how crazy it was.
What's that? What's the thing with the news? A gallery? What's that thing called? Galley?
The gallery.
How? With a noose? How? Because they was going to hang Pence, right?
Right.
Like, how?
And they really were trying to get it. Right. They were trying to get it. They were trying to get
somebody.
They were trying to get
people supposed to be locked up. Like, I said it before. Technology is so great. There's ways to find out who was in Washington and who was in that space. Because people took off from work.
I think they're going to find out. They're going to find out.
But it's some people going to slip through the cracks.
Right.
People took off from work. They didn't have a planned vacation. And I'm talking about like people that are cops and, people that got jobs that really has accountability.
Sure.
I'm not talking about somebody with a job that they can take off when they want or entrepreneur or something like that.
Sure.
I'm talking about these people that were law and order, quote unquote, people
many
that were
them.
out there.
Yeah, many of them.
And they should be the ones really getting the charge, even the retired ones and the military ones. They should really be getting the big charges because they know better.
Right.
They know better.
Right.
And they were out there. But to have that galley out there, that's something that's crazy.
All I know, if there was a bunch of black and brown people in the White House carrying on, the image of that is just insane. These guys are young and screaming at cops. It's just, it's a crazy world we live in. That's all I can say. And that's why people are, kind of turned off by politics. But we got to stay the course. As NYCHA residents, and you see all this madness on the national level, and all this madness on the city, state, and local level. We just got to get involved, and we gotta vote. As we need to really, absolutely change. The type of leadership that we get. Where folks are in it just for the power. Where Hochul, as a governor, can make a deal with a Republican to get money for that in that Republican's pocket, who supports Trump and is against many of the policies that Hochul herself stands for. But yet you're gonna do a deal, and put money in his pockets for Penn Station, but you're gonna privatize NYCHA. And so when you look at the decisions that are made, it's heartbreaking. And it just tells you where we really stand, where they really see us. And they think they could do this because A, they think we're not paying attention. B, they think we won't vote. So if we change those dynamics, we can change what these politicians are doing. But we got to pay attention, because they're running a serious game on us on all levels, in many different aspects of government.
Yeah.
I don't think that to be honest, it seems like they never cared. Actually, it seemed like they ever cared. They never cared.
They didn't.
Never cared.
They didn't. Like Malcolm X said, the battle of the bullet. We don't want to get to the bullet stage, but I really believe, I did see a poll that my cousin sent me, that a good percentage of people think this country's going to head to a civil war. And I was like, wow, and that seems inconceivable. But when you see what's happening, when you see people like live in NYCHA being disenfranchised and basically written off to the extent that we are, then you see our cities become a place where only the rich can live. You know, and you see conditions and decisions being made to benefit only a few. You know, and so many of us are left out. And sometimes it's not just black and white. There's a lot of white people being left behind as well. You know, yet they still vote for and support people that don't even have their best interests at heart. You know, like why would a poor white person support Donald Trump? I would never know to think that he would ever be in your best interest. You know, but as we get left out and as the lack of leadership continues, I'm concerned about where this country's going to go. You know, and I think it's legitimately possible that we can end up in that situation.
Any president honest, y'all make it sound like the country care about us. Country don't. Care about us at all.
Well,
Talk about it.
they don't.
I'm gonna drop an article, and y'all can check it out too. Eric Adams has a secret office.
What? A
I'm
secret
gonna
office.
drop it in the chat. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. Y'all can read up on that. Okay.
Okay. Well, can you expound? What do you mean you got a secret office? Not in City Hall, or like what? An office to do what?
Gotta see. I'm gonna send it out. This is in a political article, published July 13th.
7 Crowns or something like that with that?
Okay. What you know about the Furtado brothers? No.
Well,
They
I'm
were
just-
part of that, wasn't they? 7 Crowns?
Hey, that's what Eric got him secret office. Watch out.
Well, I'm just disappointed. I mean, I don't know what that would be for. You know, I just don't
I'm
know.
gonna drop that in for y'all to read and others. Supposed to be a very safe, secure building. So what does that tell you?
Well, is he
If
feel like
it's
he's under
something-
threat?
If
Is
something
he feeling
happens, he could
threatened?
be whisked away there, I guess. Gotta check it out. That's
lived in Jersey?
narcissism. They say he lives in Jersey.
Eric Adams is. I mean, I'm gonna say again. I'm from Bed-Stuy, you know, and
Nobody seen him?
And I know a lot of people who still live in Bed-Stuy, you know, and I mean, I haven't heard nobody say they saw Eric go to the corner store, the bodega, you know, none of that. You know, this is for years, you know. So
But he pops up everywhere else in the city.
I'm not sure. I don't know if you say that. I think people will see him in the neighborhood, even living in Bed-Stuy, and like he said he did. And so, you know, I'm not sure what else to say about that.
He shouldn't be the mayor.
I mean, technically, you can't be a mayor if you don't live in the city. You know, and you know, I mean,
Like living in Hong Kong and you're the president of the United States.
well, I think he said he was living in Borough Hall at one point, or something to that effect. And then he can't.
I dropped the article in, so I can check out that article. Yeah, the madness we experience. So I don't know. We could segue to. I'm gonna see if I can pull an article up. But if anybody aware, we know about the redistricting with the congressional seats. We know congressional lines. Excuse me. We know that the election, I think, is coming up August 23rd.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't see the date in front of me. But that primary election is coming up. We know Carolyn Maloney and Nadler are going against each other, which they are colleagues, and now that's happening because that one person will be gone, right?
Right.
And that was part of the 2020 census, was to get counted. We were 87. Count numbers. 87 people weren't counted, which slated us to lose at least 2 congressional seats, 1 or 2.
Right.
So I'm not sure if this is just the head-to-head. I didn't check all the congressional races if there are any other colleagues going head-to-head. But that's a problem because how everything, the lines was drawn. She lost Queens. She lost Queens and a bit of Brooklyn that she had, which is just crazy. And then now she's got to go into new territory. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney into Nadler's area. Nadler got to come into our area to try to get us. And it's just unfortunate that, you know, 2 up there in age that been doing the work for years, and you know she's a fighter, you know, and I'm still going to stick with her. You know, I find her to be a phenomenal woman, a very personable person, and you know, and she just fights for the rights of. She stood with us, you know. We've been in spaces with her.
Yeah, I have.
She's done so much in Queensbridge.
She did.
Astoria houses. I don't know, was she your congresswoman?
Yeah, no, yeah, she's been out. I've done some work with her in Ravenswood.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's one of the things now. City Council is going through some things. There's some maps that are drawn where they're possibly, it's not a permanent thing, there's drafts of maps. So this is a redistricting as well with the City Council maps is happening. So I'm going to speak about Congressional District 5, which is mine. So Congressional District 5, not congressional, City Council District, City Council District 5 covers Roosevelt Island, some of Up East Side, and parts of a small part of East Harlem as well. Now, because of these maps that they drew,
Right.
Roosevelt Island wouldn't be part of District 5. They would go to District 26, which is Queens, which is crazy.
Which is ridiculous.
Also, District 26 will also get some of the Upper East Side, which is part of Sutton Place and stuff like that. They'll get some of that. Now, that's a problem, but the other part is all of the parts, the people I named, or these areas I named, they serve, or their community board is Community Board 8, which I'm a part of.
Right.
So then when you do that, then we actually have a Roosevelt Island committee on our board.
Okay.
So if they make these changes, they're no longer on our community board. I mean, it's just a mess. So testifying will come up for that. I got to pull up a link, and you all can look by borough, or look at your your city council district to see if there's any changes with the maps for you. If you know your area, that's the thing too. Some people don't, but I know it impacts because we brought some guests on from 26.
Quite a bit.
So that means that would expand for them, right? Some of their territory.
Right.
But when you think about it, are they really gonna? I mean, that would have to be their constituents. Because who's 26 now? Is it what's her name? It's a female, right?
Yeah, Julie Wong.
Julie Wong, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. So yeah, because I mean, we had a couple of candidates on, and it was like 26 had a very huge
we had
race.
Yeah, maybe like
19,
20 people were running.
People were running for that race.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about, guys and gals out there, because this is something that can directly impact you. I'll share later the where you can testify eventually if it's going to impact you.
Right.
And if you don't want that to happen, it's best to testify. I did testify at the Independent Redistricting Committee. I wanted to keep Carolyn Maloney as my congresswoman, and I just testified about that and how we are I-5 buildings and a little bit, I think it's like on 95th and 3rd Normandy Court and maybe another spot. We're in the 68th Assembly District, but my neighbors across the street was in the 73rd District.
Right.
This makes no sense.
No, it really don't. Total confusion.
Drawing the lines.
And why are they being changed, and who benefits because of the change.
So now with City Council, that might impact some of you that are listening. So you should know what's going on, because it's going to affect the next next year's race as well.
Right.
You might think that's this particular person, that's your city council member. I keep saying Congress. Your city councilwoman or man, and it might not be that person come next year.
And I'll tell you why that's problematic. I've been in many NYCHA meetings. I mean, first of all, not just NYCHA residents. I think majority of the public are unaware, of who their elected officials are. So not just NYCHA residents. You can walk down any street in Brooklyn and ask maybe 10 people, who's your district leader? And who is your...
Stan sound like me. He sound like me, right? Y'all be saying that, right? But let's be clear.
I'm not one of the best.
Okay. But don't give it out.
Like who's your district leader? Who is who's your city council person? Who's your state committee person? Who's your whatever the office position is? And they really won't know. And that's before all of this. So if you did know who it was, now it ain't that person. You're being disenfranchised because you don't know who to go to. Like, who do I go to if I'm in a NYCHA development and my sink fell apart, whatever. And I want to send a letter to my elected official. Who is that person? So if it's changing all the time and you don't know who it is and you really can't advocate for yourself, and you're being disenfranchised, by not knowing. So no, it's problematic. It's real problematic.
And it's sadly because they only come around election time. You know what I'm saying? Like they should have a representative at association meetings. They should be sending out mailers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I get it. People get this mail and I see it. You know, we get mailers from our assembly members and, you know, different mailers that come out monthly or quarterly, however they want to send it out. And I get it. People look at it and they just stick it up top because they don't want to read it. But then that is you should know that is somebody that represents you.
Right.
And you should know that is a person you can call.
Right.
You know, not necessarily them, but their office. And every elected official office should have a good staff or a staff that's going to take care of you. Part of the constituent services. They should have that. And if they don't, demand it.
Absolutely.
Because you don't always have to speak to the person, your elected official, but they do have staff that are proactive.
And make them do their work.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a NYCHA resident
and
your city council, if you go to the manager's office or whatever the case would be, and you're not getting the result, you shouldn't, which we've done ourselves. We've emailed city council people and their central service staff, and they come out and they help. You know, but that shouldn't be that should be the norm. That should be what they're doing on a regular basis. You know, and I know that's really not happening. I know that's one that I give Calvin credit for. You know, she's one of the only. No, I'm a Brian Barnwell too over there in Woodside. Those are the only two elected officials that I know personally came to a manager's office. You know, and the impact that it had. I can go scream all I want. You know, but they can say, "Who are you, Stan? You know, you just you." But if you are a congresswoman or you are a state assembly person, or they're going to jump around now. They have to. It shouldn't be that way though, but that's just the way it is. You know, so we got to make them work. And that's one of the things we're going to be doing with NYCHA is when we do have our meetings, number one, we want to educate you on who your elected officials are. But mostly also important, when we begin to go down to those manager offices, they need to be there right with us, you know, so they could see for themselves. You know, a picture could tell you everything. Once you go down there and see what these residents who are your constituents actually deal with, then you know. Then you know the actual impact of your policies. You know, you can actually hear it directly from them. You know, so we want to bring them into this equation. They need to be coming down to your office with us, and they will be. Or we're gonna call you out if you don't.
Stan's gonna do it. Stan will do it.
Well, we're gonna do it.
See how you say it? Because also, to all the people that like to send out emails about your complaints to whoever you're sending it to, find out your legislators, your elected officials, their emails, and CC them in your emails. It gives it a little more traction because they can see that they're CC'd in it. And say if they're not responding to you, they should be responding as well. You should be putting your borough president inside your email as well, the public advocate, your city council, your Congress, your Senate, and your state senator and your senator. You should be adding those people, and if you want your district leaders as well. But put your elected officials in your emails and them in there, because that makes people know you as well. You know, and do your best to breathe when you write your emails, especially if you're upset about something. You know, I've ran across abrasive emails, and those to me, I get it, but you're sending out an email. So just do your best to breathe and, you know, write an email that gets to the point. Give you a situation, send your pictures, video, whatever you want to put in there, and you know, just be careful with your tone, you know, because you want a response, or you want to be responded to quickly. Because sometimes when the emails are abrasive, to me, you know, I've seen them, and I was like, I wouldn't be answering that. I wouldn't be answering that. Like, I wouldn't even respond to it. So that could be what happens if the tone is there.
Right. So, I know you're upset.
You
know, and
take some time. Breathe. Breathe. And if you need help, Stan and I can help you with that too. We want to be a resource to the people.
Absolutely.
Right, Mike too. Putting you in there. I'm putting words in your mouth like Stan. I'm saying he going we. Where we at? What's our time? Where we at?
Well, we over an hour.
Well, I just want before we go, any resident listening, if you have a repair issue in your apartment right this very second, I also sit on the board of Just Fix, which is an amazing organization that can actually really help get repairs done. So if you have an issue in your apartment, any NYCHA resident, please go to our email, which Mike is
onenighttv@gmail.com.
And so you can go there and contact us. And what we will do in turn is get back in touch with you and submit a letter of complaint, which would be a certified letter that will go to your manager's office.
From Just Fix.
From Just Fix. So then that begins the
NYC.
process for the Just Fix
NYC.
NYC. So once your manager's office gets that letter, then the next step is if they don't respond and do the work, then we need to start going down to the manager's offices, to apply the next pressure. And these letters of complaint will be the foundation of lawsuits. Like we're gonna sue in Astoria. Those are all based on letters of complaints. We had a lawsuit in Queensbridge. It was based on the letters of complaint. We're gonna have a lawsuit in Ravenswood, the letters of complaint. So you start out with that. It only takes 15 people in a development, or less in some cases, to do a actual lawsuit. 15 people file letters of complaint. You don't get the repairs done, then you can actually take the next step, which is a HP action individually or collectively. Because we got to begin taking NYCHA to court. We can't sit and suffer in silence anymore. So one NYCHA wants to be a resource for that, especially if you live in a RAD converted building. If you're in a RAD converted building or a blueprint converted building or whatever the case may be, then your story and your narrative is even more important. So we need to, if you have repair issues, please get in touch with us because we want to show that. Because as long as they could tell the narrative and show the beautified developments, that they privatized, but don't show you the reality of how they look 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
And if we're not able to tell that story, then they're gonna push through and take the rest of the stock, which is what they want to do. So
and also with that, Stan will be spearheading the Just Fix
Right.
and NYC letters, and also if you email us, I also help people get repairs as well.
Yeah.
So Stan will do the Just Fix NYC part. I will take care of another side of it, and I've seen results what I was able to do, and I was able to get. If I recall two incidents so far. When my email went out, literally I think it was a Monday or Tuesday, they were at the person's house
Absolutely.
the next day.
Yep.
The next day. And I've done it before, and it was like in the next couple of days. So I can get results as well. And this will go through the One NYCHA email,
Absolutely.
of course. So we can provide you more than just the letter complaint. We can also get you some repairs that's needed. And also, if you're under a new RAD conversion, keep in mind if you have overdue repairs and you're under the new RAD conversion, NYCHA is still responsible for those repairs. So contact Public Housing NYCHA, even though you're under RAD and it's different. But if it's bad or whatever they didn't take care of, they're still responsible for that. So don't let them fool you. Because if so, you'll be waiting longer
Absolutely.
for your repairs. So say, for instance, if you do call the new people that's working with you and they shucking and jiving you, call NYCHA, because if it's a new conversion, we helped. You did the Just Fix in NYC,
Yeah.
the lady from Boulevard
Yep.
Houses. But I also got her in touch with the compliance unit.
Absolutely.
When I was at when we were speaking at City Council.
Right.
At the Public Housing Committee, and I ran into his first name is Brad. I can't think of the last name right now. I don't know if it's Green, but I ran into him. I showed him pictures. He took her information, and they actually relocated a lady in Boulevard Houses that was under a new RAD conversion because NYCHA was still responsible for the repairs, and her apartment was not livable.
Right.
But she was living in there, and she was a plaster helper for NYCHA.
And can't make it up.
You can't. So we have a lot of resources, and we can help get things done.
Actually, and also send in videos. If you have issues in your apartment, you can post it to our page. If you have a repair issue, videos also are effective these days to go along with the letters. Let us be a resource.
Email it as well.
Yeah. We let us be a
got you.
resource. We here to help you.
One NYCHA, One People. We'll be back next week.
Rock Logic, the famous Rock Logic, done walked into the room.
One NYCHA, One People. We lifted off.
All right, One NYCHA, One People.